Roderick MacLeod's claws scraped the jagged stone of Castle Dunraven as the fog thickened, curling around the ancient turrets like ghostly serpents. The Highland wind carried a biting chill that cut through his crimson mantle, yet no cold could quell the inferno consuming him. Below, the forest lay shrouded in silver moonlight, each shadow stretching and twisting as if mocking the chaos in his heart. His gaze locked onto the scene that had shattered centuries of loyalty, fate, and sacred bonds. Genevieve Beaumont, her golden tresses shimmering in the spectral light, pressed against Thibault Laurent, their kiss both deliberate and devastating. Roderick's wolf spirit flared violently, muscles tensing as the mate bond. An ancient tether forged under lunar blessing, shivered and splintered like crystal underfoot. The pain was more than emotional. It clawed at his very essence, setting every nerve, every sinew, alight. A growl, guttural and primal, rumbled in his chest, rolling through the castle halls and into the valleys beyond, awakening dormant packs and stirring the air as though the moon itself recoiled in alarm. Kingdoms balanced precariously. The bonds of loyalty and territory were fragile threads, and Roderick knew that one misstep could send centuries of fragile alliances crashing into blood-soaked chaos. Thunder cracked above like the verdict of the gods, illuminating the treetops in fleeting silver flashes. Roderick leapt from the parapet with a predator's grace, partial transformation blurring his human and wolf forms, fur bristling, amber eyes burning with a predatory light. He crashed through the underbrush, branches snapping underfoot, leaves raining down like shards of glass, until the world narrowed to the tableau of betrayal. Genevieve! His roar tore through the night, reverberating off cliffs and rocks, scattering nocturnal creatures in terror. Her emerald gown fluttered in the wind, and she froze, porcelain features pale yet alive with a storm of emotions. Shock, fear, something deeper and unspoken that Roderick could not read in his fury. Thibault Laurent, standing with the poise of a seasoned duelist and the arrogance of one who believed he could claim another's destiny, placed a firm hand on the hilt of his sword, jaw set and eyes daring the Alpha to act. The air seemed to hum with tension, charged by the clash of two Alpha spirits and a fractured mate bond. Roderick's nostrils flared, taking in the mingling sense of pine, rain, and betrayal. Every fiber of his being demanded blood, retribution, the reclamation of what the gods themselves had decreed his. Yet beneath the roiling fire of jealousy lurked a trembling vulnerability, the dread that the woman he had sworn to protect, the mate that bound him for life, might have been lost to another, leaving him bereft of the one tether anchoring his immortal soul. Guards and pack members converged, sensing the surge of power emanating from the Alpha. Yet Roderick moved as though the world had narrowed to the three of them alone. In a blur of muscle and supernatural strength, he seized Thibault by the gorget, lifting him with effortless dominance. The smaller man gasped, face purpling, eyes wide as he dangled under the weight of the Alpha's wrath. "You dare touch what is mine?" Roderick's voice rolled like distant thunder, every word a wave of authority that made kneeling wolves quake. Genevieve stepped forward, delicate hands raised, stormy gray eyes shimmering with urgency. "Roderick, wait. There's more at play than you see." Her voice was calm yet trembling, laced with desperation. She moved with grace even amid fear, her words a fragile lifeline thrown across the chasm of his rage. "Please think. This isn't what it seems. Thibault isn't your enemy. He's protecting something. Protecting me." The Alpha's claws dug deeper into stone as his chest heaved, heart pounding with betrayal, fury, and fear intertwined. His wolf's howl, a sound older than the forest itself, cut through the night, a lament that was also a warning. Every distant howl answered back, the pack restless, unsettled by the surge of unchecked power radiating from their leader. One wrong move, one snap of temper, and not only could he destroy Thibaut, but the fragile bonds with neighboring clans, forged over centuries, could crumble in a cascade of war. Roderick's vision blurred in the red haze of fury and instinct. He could feel the pull of the mate bond, twisted and frayed, calling him to claim what was his, to punish the perceived betrayal. Yet Genevieve's gaze held a quiet force, reminding him that love, true love, was rarely simple, often hidden beneath layers of deception, sacrifice, and danger. The night hung suspended, every torch flicker on the castle walls casting long shadows that mirrored his turmoil. Breathless, poised between wrath and reason, Roderick felt the first twinge of clarity piercing the storm. One choice could destroy everything, but another, if he could temper instinct with judgment, might save not only his mate but his legacy, the unity of his pack, and perhaps even Thibaut's honor. The night waited, silent and expectant, as the Alpha grappled with the rawest of human and wolf emotions. Betrayal, jealousy, desire, and the fragile flicker of forgiveness. In that suspended moment, Roderick realized the ultimate question. What would you sacrifice in the face of raw, consuming betrayal? Blood, pride, or the one soul who held the power to tether your heart? The castle seemed to inhale, the fog curling lower, the moonlight shimmering with a silver warning. The choices lay before him like the sharpest of blades, and only the Alpha's heart, raw and untamed, could navigate the storm ahead. Dawn broke over Dunraven's rugged peaks, the sun struggling to pierce the lingering mist that clung to the jagged rocks like a ghost of forgotten battles. Light spilled reluctantly across the stone walls of the grand chamber, illuminating tapestries depicting the MacLeod lineage. Hunts beneath blood moons, clansmen locked in ritual, wolves howling against darkened skies. Each thread seemed to whisper the weight of generations, a tapestry of expectation and obligation. Roderick MacLeod paced the length of the room, boots echoing against the flagstone floor like distant drums of war, a caged Alpha wrestling with a storm he could neither predict nor contain. He was every bit the Highland legend, broad-shouldered, scarred from border skirmishes, and exuding the quiet menace of a man used to commanding loyalty from both men and beast. Yet beneath that indomitable exterior, doubt gnawed like a persistent hound. Genevieve Beaumont, the French émigré whose family had fled revolutionary France, had been his anchor for 2 years. She moved through his world like sunlight through the mist, elegant, clever, and devastatingly perceptive, challenging his strength not through force but by exposing the gaps in his armor. And yet, Roderick could not quell the shadows of suspicion. Was her devotion real, or was it a carefully crafted facade, a lure to secure alliances with Thibaut Laurent, the polished yet dangerous duke whose duchy pressed hungrily against the borders of his lands? Below in the great hall, the morning ritual of feasting and council continued, oak tables sagging under platters of venison, bread, and ale. Alastair Drummond, Roderick's lifelong beta and friend, waited, his face weathered by storms of both Highland winters and political intrigue, pouring mead into silver goblets etched with wolf motifs. He studied Roderick with the unflinching gaze of a man who had survived boyhood skirmishes at his side. "Laird, ye cannae let this fester," Alastair urged, his brogue thick, words sharp with urgency. "Ye ken the stakes. Thibaut's ambitions won't wait, and Genevieve. She's no mere pawn, but the world watches what she does. Roderick clenched his jaw, recalling moonlit rides when Genevieve's laughter had seemed like a charm against the cold night. Her whispering promises of loyalty now clashed with the image of secretive missives to France, clandestine encounters that Alistair's scouts had hinted at. The mind of a leader demanded vigilance. The heart of a mate demanded trust. The two warred within him, each tugging in opposite directions, leaving him hollowed and restless. Could he believe that love transcended duty, or had he been blinded by longing, his judgment clouded by desire? Seeking clarity, Roderick retreated to the armory, a cathedral of steel and ancient magic. The scent of oiled leather and iron mingled with the lingering fragrance of pine from the surrounding forests. He lifted his claymore, forged in the fires of 17th-century Edinburgh, feeling the latent hum of ancestral magic beneath the blade, a relic that had once bound wolves to human will. Runes etched into the hilt seemed to glow faintly in the morning light, reminding him of the weight of legacy, the responsibility carried by every MacLeod who had drawn blood for honor and survival. Here, amid the racks of armor and shields, each emblazoned with a rampant wolf under a crescent moon, Roderick confronted the ghosts that had haunted him since youth. The violent ambush that claimed his parents, leaving him orphaned and distrustful. The betrayals of rival clans, the unending burden of expectation. Love, he reasoned, invited vulnerability, and vulnerability had always come at a cost. And yet, Genevieve had shattered that logic, piercing his defenses with wit, intelligence, and beauty that refused to be tamed. His gaze lingered on a locket she had gifted him, a delicate trinket containing a lock of her hair. Its scent, faint but distinct, ignited both longing and suspicion, memory and desire. He traced its curve with a calloused finger, recalling the softness of her hand against his in the moonlight, the warmth of her smile. And yet, the fear remained. What truths did she conceal? Was her heart truly aligned with his, or had she been drawn to the sophistication and charm of Thibaut Laurent, whose influence over her family might surpass even the power of a Highland Alpha? Alistair's return from the great hall, eyes dark with concern, shattered the fragile cocoon of contemplation. "She's meetin' him again tonight, Laird. What will ye do?" The words fell like stones into Roderick's chest. Rage, jealousy, and dread surged simultaneously, threatening to overwhelm reason. His wolf stirred, claws itching for action, instincts screaming vengeance, protection, dominance. Yet beneath that fury lay a quieter, more dangerous force: empathy. What if she sought freedom, truth, or even safety? What if force would drive away the one soul who had shown him the possibility of love? The day stretched onward, light waning, shadows deepening in the corners of the chamber. Roderick's thoughts twisted like the Highland winds outside. Loyalty to clan, duty to pack, and the fragility of the mate bond that tethered him to Genevieve. Each moment was a knife edge, every decision weighted with the potential to shatter not just hearts, but entire legacies. And as dusk painted the turrets in bruised purple and silver, he realized the truth. Tonight would not simply test his patience, but his soul. For in the distance, beyond the echoing forests and along the misted borders, the subtle movements of a rival duchy and the shadow of Genevieve's own hidden will awaited, threatening to redefine everything. And Roderick MacLeod, Alpha, guardian, and lover, would have to confront the tempest that had grown too long ignored, or risk losing not just his mate, but the very empire he had fought to preserve. Twilight fell over the enchanted woods like a velvet curtain, the fading light filtering through skeletal branches and casting fractured shadows across the mossy ground. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, tinged with the subtle musk of magic, the ancient lunar bond that tethered wolfkind to destiny thrumming beneath every leaf. Roderick MacLeod crouched low within a copse of bracken, crimson cloak blending with autumn's dying golds and russets. His amber eyes, sharpened by wolf instincts, glowed faintly in the dimming light, each heartbeat a drum summoning both rage and resolve. From the depths of a hidden glade, Genevieve Beaumont emerged, her emerald gown brushing the forest floor, catching the moonlight in delicate folds that whispered promises and secrets. She moved with the grace of a Parisian salon-trained noble, yet her steps betrayed a purpose beyond elegance. And there he stood, Thibaut Laurent, French Duke, polished and commanding, the silvered edges of his armor catching the last shards of twilight. His presence radiated power, arrogance, and charm, a foil to Roderick's primal intensity. Their voices, murmured too low for even his heightened hearing to decipher, carried an intimacy that stabbed Roderick's very soul. His wolf stirred, teeth grinding, muscles coiling. The mate bond throbbed with agonizing pulse, a cruel echo of betrayal that clawed at him from within. Roderick's restraint snapped. A roar tore through the forest, raw and guttural, shaking birds from their nests and rattling the leaves overhead. The transformation began, the wolf within him asserting dominance as fangs lengthened, claws unsheathed, muscles shifting beneath taut skin. "Treachery ends here," he bellowed, a storm incarnate. He launched at Thibaut, tackling the French Duke with effortless power, hurling him against a broad oak. The bark splintered under the impact. Thibaut's armor rang with a metallic echo. Genevieve gasped, a hand flying to her mouth as her emerald eyes widened in terror. "Roderick, no. This isn't betrayal." But the Alpha could not hear reason over the primal roar within. His wolf demanded dominance, justice for what it perceived as desecration of the sacred bond. Torches flared as summoned guards emerged from the shadows, encircling the combatants, their polished weapons gleaming in the moonlight. Sparks flew as steel met claw. The air vibrated with the combined fury of wolf and man. Thibaut rose, sword drawn, eyes flashing defiance. "She chose freely, Alpha. Your bond means nothing if forced." His words struck like a lance, stoking both the fire of Roderick's rage and the ache of uncertainty that lingered beneath it. Genevieve moved between them, heart hammering, breath uneven, hand brushing against Roderick's arm in both plea and tender fire. "Listen, my love, this is a ruse," she implored, voice cutting through the chaotic symphony of growls, steel, and snapping branches. "It's to expose the dangers that lie within our own walls." For a heartbeat, doubt flickered across Roderick's amber eyes, the wolf within snarling, claws twitching, while the man remembered the trust, the connection, the shared nights under blood moons. With a guttural growl of controlled fury, he redirected his energy, binding Thibaut not with cruelty, but with enchanted vines harvested from the forest floor, their pulsing green glow entwining the Duke in unbreakable restraint. Silence fell, heavy as fog, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the labored breaths of all three. Roderick's mind raced, calculating consequences even as his chest heaved. This single incident had sent ripples through kingdoms. Thibaut's duchy might view the humiliation as an act of war, loyal pacts might fracture under stress, and spies within Dunraven could exploit the chaos. Yet in that frozen moment, Genevieve's storm-gray eyes met his, unwavering, a spark of trust igniting amidst the tumult. "Trust me, and we'll uncover the truth," she whispered, her hand brushing against his, grounding him, bridging instinct and reason, passion and prudence. They began their trek back to Castle Dunraven, the forest closing around them like a living, breathing entity. Branches snapped underfoot, shadows danced unnaturally, and the wind carried whispers that seemed almost sentient. Without warning, silver-tipped arrows hissed through the night, aimed directly at Roderick's heart. Reflexively, he shifted, wolf muscles rippling, shielding Genevieve with his own body as he deflected the deadly assault. The attack confirmed her warning. Enemies lurked in the shadows, orchestrating schemes beyond even the Duke's foresight. By the time the gates of Dunraven rose before them, the Alpha had made a silent vow. He would not let the bond break, would not allow her to be pawns in games of politics or vengeance. Together, they would navigate the labyrinth of threats. Clandestine allies, rival duchies, and dark conspiracies that sought to exploit fear, jealousy, and loyalty. The inciting incident, the night of confrontation, betrayal, and revelation, had propelled them into a vortex of intrigue, romance, and supernatural peril. Every choice from this moment forward carried the weight of kingdoms and hearts alike, and Roderick knew that neither fury nor love alone would guide them. They would need cunning, courage, and each other to survive. The forest behind them whispered secrets, the moon casting silver light over the path to Dunraven. And as they entered the gates, Roderick's claws left marks on stone, a silent testament. The wolf would not relent, and his mate's trust, once earned, would be defended against every shadow, every threat, until the last breath of night faded. The undercroft of Castle Dunraven was alive with whispers of stone and shadow, dampness curling in the torchlight like ghostly fingers. Every drip of water echoed like a ticking clock, marking the relentless passage of hours and the weight of secrets yet unrevealed. Roderick MacLeod's amber eyes blazed in the dim glow as he paced before the chained figure of Thibaut Laurent. Every step was measured, deliberate, controlled fury coiled like a spring beneath his skin. Across the chamber, Genevieve stood resolute, her emerald gown torn in places, smudged with grime from the forest and the confrontation. Yet her posture radiated an unyielding courage. The night's revelations had left their mark, but she bore them with quiet determination. "Speak your purpose," Roderick demanded, his voice low and dangerous, the growl threading through the stone walls and into the ears of both prisoner and ally alike. Thibaut, bloodied and bruised, met the Alpha's gaze without flinching, his eyes glinting with both defiance and urgency. "We feigned affection to lure out the serpents in your court," he confessed, voice steady despite the pain. "Assassins plot your downfall, Alpha. Their aim, to destroy the mate alliances you have nurtured, and to fracture the clans through fear and rumor." Genevieve's hand trembled as she produced intercepted letters, carefully folded and sealed with the insignia of French agents, detailing plots to manipulate fear and suspicion within the Highlands. Roderick's fangs pressed instinctively against his lower lip, not in anger but in the constriction of frustration, the realization that his jealousy had nearly blinded him to the real threat. Yet in that same moment hope flickered. Shared peril had a way of forging trust, and the intensity of their bond pulsed stronger than ever. Obstacles multiplied with every hour. Alastair Drummond returned from the council chambers with a grave expression, whispering of spies and subterfuge. False sightings of Genevieve, forged letters hinting at clandestine meetings, and rumors of her disloyalty were all designed to isolate Roderick, to weaken his judgment and turn allies against him. In the privacy of her chambers, amid velvet drapes that swayed with the draft, Genevieve confessed the risk she had taken. "I risked everything because love demands action, not chains," she said, voice quivering yet fierce. Her gaze met his, storm-gray eyes challenging him to believe in her. Their embrace was immediate and electric, a reprieve from tension. The taste of her lips mingled with salt and resolve, grounding him in the reality of her devotion. Yet growth rarely comes without cost. A counselor, long suspected of mischief, attempted to manipulate evidence against Roderick, planting forged documents that hinted at Genevieve's betrayal. When he confronted the man, shadows shifted, and a sudden ambush erupted. Figures cloaked in midnight, blades glinting with poisoned steel. Roderick's claws flashed, striking with precision, felling one assailant after another, while Genevieve's quick thinking, securing escape routes and alerting the guards, saved them both from a deadly trap. Their synchronization, forged under fire, transformed fear into intimate understanding. Every glance, every subtle movement, now carried unspoken meaning. Hope solidified in the most unlikely of forms. Thibaut, bound by honor despite captivity, offered conditional allegiance. "United, we expose them," he swore, his voice steady with newfound respect for the Alpha and his mate. Yet the stakes escalated with each revelation. Border skirmishes hinted at larger forces at play, pacts tested loyalty, and whispers from neighboring clans suggested political upheaval. A war waged not with swords alone but with cunning, treachery, and the fragile hearts of those involved. Days and nights blurred into fevered pursuit. The air was thick with chaos, the metallic tang of blood mingling with the acrid smoke of burned documents, and the whispering wind through arrow slits carrying omens of yet-to-come betrayal. Tension reached its peak during one heated argument in the candlelit Great Hall, Roderick's frustration erupting as he accused Genevieve of endangering herself and their bond. Her retort was sharp, unwavering. "Better risk than lose you to shadows." Their words were edged with fire, yet beneath the sting lay love, desire, and the acknowledgement that their connection demanded courage above all. Reconciliation followed swiftly, bodies entwined, lips pressed in urgency and relief, a momentary surrender to passion that strengthened their resolve for the battles still to come. Even the red herrings that had threatened their union unraveled with careful attention and instinct. A forged seal that would have entrapped Roderick in scandal became a tool to unmask conspirators. A hidden message, once meant to mislead, revealed the location of a spy network. Each revelation reinforced the truth. Trust, intuition, and unwavering connection could overcome even the most intricate deception. The Undercroft, once echoing with fear and suspicion, now resonated with a different energy. The electric hum of partnership forged under fire, a bond that would not easily break. Every shadowed corridor of Dunraven Castle, every whispered rumor among the council, had been met with courage, calculation, and an unflinching belief in each other. Together, they had begun to turn the tide, not merely against Thibaut or shadowed assassins, but against the insidious decay of doubt and suspicion that threatened the very heart of the Highlands. Would you dare such deception, walking the knife edge between loyalty, love, and survival? Could passion and duty coexist when the enemy hides in plain sight? Share your reflections in the comments. Your insights might illuminate paths yet unseen, choices yet unmade. Moonlight spilled through the towering stained glass windows of Castle Dunraven, fracturing into a kaleidoscope of color across the sprawling maps strewn across the war room's oaken table. The faint scent of aged parchment mingled with the metallic tang of blood and the subtle musk that clung to the walls, remnants of previous skirmishes. Roderick stood at the center, broad shoulders taut, amber eyes sharp as flint as he traced the positions of clans and spies with a gauntlet finger. Genevieve leaned beside him, her hand brushing over the maps with calculated care, emerald gown trailing across the stone floor, lips pressed in concentration. Thibaut, despite their fraught history, knelt opposite, observing and advising with a warrior's precision, silver armor catching the moonlight in glints of cold brilliance. The tension shattered like glass when Alistair barreled through the arched doorway, face ashen, breath ragged, and hands trembling around a bloodied scroll. "Laird!" he gasped, voice thick with urgency. "It runs deeper than we feared, your own kin. The Council's elders. They orchestrated it all. They fear your mate bond, that it weakens the Highland defenses." Roderick's hands clenched into fists, the veins on his neck pulsing. He had expected betrayal from rivals, perhaps from distant duchies, but not from the very men sworn to counsel him, to protect the clans. The scroll unrolled under Alistair's shaking grip, revealing hidden agreements with wasteland clans, financial transfers to arm unknown assailants, and careful manipulations to foment distrust among the Highlanders. Even silver arrows from Roderick's own armory had found their way into enemy hands, and coded letters, some intercepted, some forged, had been planted to manipulate his fury, jealousy, and protectiveness toward Genevieve. Pain, disbelief, and fury erupted in him simultaneously. The mate bond throbbed violently, an internal alarm mirrored by his wolf's growl deep within. He seized Genevieve's hands, eyes locking onto hers with a mixture of anguish and desperation. I trusted them," he murmured, voice rough. "Like brothers, like family." Before she could respond, the air shifted. Alarms shrieked through the keep, and shadowed figures emerged from hidden tunnels, silver blades catching torchlight in lethal glints. The plot had sprung into full motion. Roderick barely had time to pivot. His wolf partially emerged, fur bristling, eyes glowing amber, claws slicing through assailants with primal precision. Each strike was calculated yet feral, a symphony of raw power and disciplined instinct. Genevieve was no passive bystander. From beneath her sleeve, she drew a concealed dagger, its blade gleaming with a poison only she understood. Her fencing training in Paris manifested in lethal fluidity, each parry and thrust a precise counter to the chaos swirling around her. Thibaut, recovering his composure despite earlier clashes with Roderick, carved a protective arc across their flank, steel spinning in practiced rhythm. But a graze from a poisoned blade sent him staggering, weakening their line and raising the stakes to near impossible heights. Amid the chaos, truths unraveled. One of the council's elders, cornered in the corridors by Roderick and Alistair, confessed in a trembling voice, "You love, and in our eyes that is weakness. Love blinds alphas, fear forges empires. The mate bond threatens order." The words struck Roderick like a hammer blow, confirming the depth of corruption. Allies were suspects, and every whispered counsel could be laced with treachery. Alistair, now shackled in the aftermath of his partial complicity, met Roderick's gaze coldly. "I did what I had to," he said simply. "You would have destroyed more than lives if you hadn't learned, through love's weakness." Roderick's jaw tightened, fury and heartbreak mingling in the wolf storm within him. But Genevieve's voice cut through, bright and unwavering amid the chaos. "We fight," she said, pressing herself against him amid the smoke and clanging steel. "Because our bond defies them." The words were a lifeline, and in that instant, passion erupted, not as distraction, but as affirmation. They clashed, fled, and fought back to back, bodies synchronized by danger and devotion, lips meeting briefly in stolen moments of fire and reassurance. Their escape was narrow. Secret tunnels, revealed by Thibaut's temporary allegiance, became corridors of peril. Crumbling stone, hidden snares, and deadly guardians lurked at every turn. Roderick's wolf guided them, senses attuned to vibrations beneath the floor, rustle of enemy boots, and the faint pulse of magic lingering from ancestral wards. At one point, he shielded Genevieve from a falling beam, her breath hot against his neck as he half lifted her, half warded off attackers with sweeping claws. Finally, they emerged into the moonlight, gasping on the cliffs above Dunraven, the kingdom sprawling below them like a chessboard of danger and opportunity. Behind them, the tunnels collapsed in a cloud of dust and stone, leaving only the distant echoes of retreating foes. Roderick's wolf receded into controlled form, leaving the man, raw and trembling with adrenaline, holding Genevieve tightly. They were bruised, battered, and forever changed, but bonded by the fire of shared peril. The midpoint had detonated with all the force of a Highland tempest. The betrayal of kin, the revelation of conspiracies, the surge of unfiltered passion, and the fight for survival. Roderick and Genevieve now stood at the precipice of a kingdom on the brink, hearts and claws entwined, understanding that from this point forward, every choice would shape not only their love but the fate of the Highland clans. Would you risk betrayal, danger, and unrelenting odds to protect love and truth? Could trust survive when every ally could be an enemy? Comment your thoughts. What would you do if your heart and kingdom were both at stake? Despair had settled over Dunraven like a living fog, curling through the castle corridors and seeping into the stone itself. The acrid scent of smoke, blood, and damp iron mingled with the faint musk of the wolf spirit that clung to Roderick's skin. Outside, the wasteland hordes advanced, their torches flickering through the enchanted fog like malevolent fireflies, the ground trembling under the weight of 10,000 boots. Within the castle, the echoes of wounded soldiers' cries and the clash of steel on steel reverberated through corridors that had once celebrated feasts and triumphs. Roderick paced the throne room, crimson cloak now streaked with soot and blood, hands clenched into fists that left faint gouges in the stone floor. His wolf whimpered deep within, a tremor of fear and frustration he could not fully suppress. Centuries of MacLeod pride, of Alpha dominion, now seemed a fragile veneer against the tide of betrayal and war. Genevieve knelt beside him, emerald gown torn, dirt-smudged, her hair plastered to her forehead. She reached for his hand, fingers trembling, offering solace he could scarcely accept. "We've lost allies, supplies, everything," Roderick muttered, voice low and hoarse, leaning against a marble pillar that shivered under his weight. His amber eyes, usually sharp as a predator's, now roamed the chaos in disbelief, scanning for threats that came from every angle. The council, once pillars of guidance and loyalty, had turned traitorous, orchestrating alliances with wasteland clans and sabotaging every line of defense. Their machinations had cut the castle off from reinforcements, poisoned messengers, and even infiltrated the MacLeod scouts. Thibaut, recovering from a poisoned wound inflicted in the previous skirmish, limped into the room, supported by 2 guards. His sword arm was bandaged, his expression grim. The elders, they intercepted envoys. Supplies, they diverted. The attack was designed to leave us isolated. His words landed like stones on Roderick's chest. Betrayal within the walls hurt far deeper than any enemy blade. Beyond the gates, the enemy advanced. Arrows thudded against stone, splintering wood and raining shards into the courtyard. The fire of burning outposts painted the night sky crimson, smoke curling into the clouds like a living thing, suffocating the stars. Even from the throne room, the smell of charred flesh and timber clawed at the senses. The wolf Alpha's instincts screamed warnings, pulses of danger vibrating through Roderick's body. But even he was not immune to despair. Alone for a moment, he found himself staring into the polished surface of the war chest, the reflection mocking him. Scarred features, flecks of soot in his hair, lips pressed in a hard line. He saw not a leader, but a man blinded by his own desires, a mate blinded by love. Love made me weak. Love made me blind. The thought twisted in his gut, and for the first time, Roderick allowed himself to imagine a future without Genevieve. A vision so unbearable it nearly broke him. Genevieve, sensing his internal collapse, pressed her forehead to his shoulder. "Roderick, we still have each other," she whispered. Her words should have offered comfort, yet the reality outside, the battering rams, the horde's relentless advance, the deaths of loyal scouts, gnawed at both of them. Fear clutched her heart as tightly as his own. "Did my plan doom us?" she asked, voice breaking, hands clenched to her chest. The night deepened. Midnight brought with it the wail of siege engines, the pounding of horde boots, and the shriek of arrows as they tore through the keep's outer walls. A surprise raid breached the battlements, and loyal scouts fell in silent, brutal efficiency, bodies collapsing into blood-soaked stone. Each life lost etched deeper into Roderick's conscience, sharpening his guilt into a blade that cut sharper than any dagger. His wolf growled, a low, mournful sound that shook the room. "I am failing her. I am failing us all." In a rare eruption, desperation boiled over. Roderick grabbed Genevieve's arms, amber eyes storming with a mix of fury and helplessness. "We end this alone," he roared, voice echoing through the vaulted chamber. But Genevieve, steel beneath her trembling form, met his gaze with equal fire. "No," she said. "We survive together or we die divided. I will not, cannot, let you face this alone." Her words cracked through the despair like sunlight through storm clouds, kindling a fragile spark of hope in Roderick's heart. But hope was fleeting. From the courtyard below came a chorus of war cries, the battering rams now striking in unison against the great gates. The echo reverberated like a heartbeat of doom, and the castle shuddered under the assault. Arrows and fire rained from above, forcing the defenders into chaotic retreat. Roderick drew a deep breath, wolf instincts flaring, every muscle coiled for the coming storm. He tightened his grip on Genevieve's waist, feeling her pulse against his chest, sensing the synchronicity of their survival instinct. In the midst of chaos, he realized the truth of the darkest hour. It was not simply about the enemy outside, but the enemy within: fear, doubt, and fractured trust. Allies could betray, kin could scheme, and love could seem fragile. But it was the strength of the bond, tested by fire and blood, that would determine if they rose or fell. Roderick's wolf rose fully now, claws glinting in torchlight, fangs bared, growling in resonance with the pounding siege. "We fight," he growled, voice low and dangerous, a promise and a threat intertwined. Genevieve's hands were steady on his shoulders, dagger flashing as she mirrored his intent, eyes fierce with defiance. Together, they would hold Dunraven, hold each other, and face the abyss with hearts ablaze. The darkest hour had come, and it would either break them or forge them into an unstoppable force. The castle trembled, the horde roared, and yet, amid the chaos, their bond, blood-bound, soul-bound, remained the one thing unassailable. From the ashes of despair, a fragile spark glimmered in the battered throne room. Moonlight, filtered through cracked stained-glass windows, struck the worn stone floors in fractured shards of violet and gold. Dust hung in the air like the ghosts of past failures. Yet amid the ruin, Genevieve's eyes burned with a fire Roderick had thought extinguished. She stepped forward, voice unwavering, even as the storm of arrows and siege engines rumbled beyond the walls. "We reclaim our strength," she declared, her hand brushing against his shoulder, steadying him as though tethering his wolf spirit itself. Her emerald gown, torn and dirt-streaked, caught the silver light, her determination outshining the room's devastation. Roderick's amber eyes, heavy with the weight of failure, met hers, and in that gaze he saw not a plea for protection, but a challenge. To rise, to fight, to lead not from duty, but from love. The revelations of the Council's treachery, Alistair's coerced manipulations, and Thibault's earlier duplicity had shattered him, but clarity emerged in their shared resolve. Love, he realized, was not a weakness to bind, but a forge to temper courage. With Genevieve by his side, his wolf's primal instincts harmonized with his human mind, creating a singular force that radiated power and purpose. Strategic decisions unfolded quickly. Thibault, recovering but resolute, arrived with a contingent of loyalists hidden in secret tunnels beneath the castle. Their plan was audacious. Infiltrate enemy camps under cover of night, dismantle supplies, and cripple siege engines before the next dawn. Roderick's mind raced with logistics, mapping patrols, anticipating trap placements, timing the strike. But it was Genevieve's insight, honed in Parisian salons and through her cunning observation of human behavior, that revealed vulnerabilities in the enemy's ranks. As they convened, hands brushing over maps, whispered calculations layered with tension, Roderick felt the bond with Genevieve strengthen palpably. "We act together," he murmured, voice low yet resolute, claws partially extended beneath his sleeves, a silent testament to the wolf within. "No more shadows, no more doubt. Together, we turn the tide." Her fingers found his, lingering in a quiet affirmation, and in that simple contact, the spark of hope ignited fully. The night deepened. They slipped into the castle's labyrinthine tunnels, the scent of damp stone and hidden flora a constant companion. Shadows clung to corners, whispering of danger, yet Roderick and Genevieve moved as one, instincts entwined, the wolf attuned to both human and supernatural threats. Poised and silent, they neutralized sentries, the faint snap of ropes and rustle of boots echoing like drumbeats of rebellion. Each step reinforced trust. A glance, a touch, a shared breath became signals that guided them safely. At the enemy encampments, chaos reigned. Fires smoldered, tents collapsed, and loyalists from Dunraven struck with precision. Roderick led the charge, wolf form emerging in bursts, a towering figure of fang and claw, amber eyes glowing like twin lanterns of vengeance. Genevieve, dagger in hand, danced through shadows with lethal grace, her movements fluid as if sculpting the battlefield itself. Thibault, still recovering but resolute, coordinated reinforcements, ensuring each strike crippled the enemy without unnecessary loss. Yet the turning point was more than tactical. As dawn approached, Roderick and Genevieve performed a clandestine ritual in the ruined chapel of the keep, invoking lunar energy that had long bonded their souls. Moonlight pooled over the ancient stones, illuminating silver talismans etched with wolf crests. Hands joined, they channeled their love and determination into a shared strength, an unbreakable tether that imbued both their bodies and minds with clarity and courage. The bond pulsed visibly, shimmering through the room, a radiant aura signaling their renewed unity to every loyalist within Dunraven's walls. Their final decision solidified the turning point. The elders, architects of betrayal, would be publicly exposed. The risk was immense. Mutiny could fracture the castle from within, but remaining passive had proven fatal. Roderick's voice, calm yet imbued with authority, reverberated through the hall as he addressed the council. Deception will no longer rule Dunraven. All who betray our bond, our people, will face the consequences. Genevieve's hand rested on his arm, grounding him, sharing both the weight and the resolve. Hope bloomed amid this calculated defiance. Roderick's wolf, once a symbol of isolation and rage, now reflected his courage, circling the room in a low, protective hum. Genevieve's emerald gaze held steady, the warmth of love tempered with the precision of intellect. Together, they had transformed despair into action, fear into power, and their bond into a weapon more formidable than any blade. As the first light of morning crept over Dunraven's ramparts, the enemy, disoriented by sabotage and divided by internal treachery, faltered. Signals were sent. Reinforcements would arrive soon, but the immediate victory had been carved by trust, ingenuity, and courage. The turning point was not just the reclaiming of the battlefield. It was the reclamation of agency, of heart, and of destiny. Roderick, breathing heavily yet steady, glanced at Genevieve, fingers still entwined. "This is only the beginning," he murmured, amber eyes softened by gratitude and affection. She nodded, a faint smile breaking through the grime and fatigue. "And we face it together," she replied, her voice resonating with unwavering certainty. The stage was set for the climax, the final confrontation where loyalty, love, and courage would collide, and the fate of Dunraven would hang in the balance. For in this turning point, they had discovered the truth. Their bond, tested in the darkest hour, was now a force no treachery, no army, no fear could dismantle. The wasteland hordes surged across the mist-shrouded moors like a living storm, their war cries rolling over the hills and mixing with the thunder that shook the highland skies. Roderick stood at Dunraven's front line, wolf form rippling beneath human flesh, muscles glowing under the blood moon's crimson gaze. His amber eyes blazed with fury and resolve, every heartbeat echoing centuries of lineage and loyalty. The scent of rain, blood, and magic hung thick in the air, but his focus was singular: protect his mate, his people, and the honor of Dunraven. The battle unfolded in a violent ballet. Genevieve, stationed atop the northern ridge with a contingent of sharpshooters and archers she had trained, rained arrows with deadly precision. Her emerald gown fluttered like a banner of defiance, her hair catching moonlight as she issued commands with measured authority. Each volley cut through enemy ranks, sowing confusion and turning the initial chaos into disciplined resistance. Roderick, sensing her tactical mind guiding the tide, felt a surge of admiration mixed with desire, her intellect as lethal as any weapon he wielded. In the center of the battlefield, duels erupted like sparks in a storm. Roderick faced Alistair, his former beta, now revealed as a traitor driven by fear and envy. The clash was brutal, claws tearing, swords ringing against enchanted steel, each strike carrying the weight of betrayal, loyalty, and unspoken histories. When Alistair faltered under the force of Roderick's righteous fury, falling to his knees amidst a cascade of mud and blood, catharsis surged through the Alpha. Yet there was no time for celebration. The battle's tide shifted with every horn blast, every shrouded figure emerging from the fog. Amid the carnage, Genevieve moved like a phantom, her small dagger flashing in moonlight, her strategic insight exposing enemy weaknesses. She led squads through secret passages, sabotaging siege engines and collapsing supply tents. Thibaut, finally healed, fought alongside them, his loyalty proven as he defended flanks and rescued wounded allies. The trio, Roderick, Genevieve, and Thibaut, moved in sync, an unbroken triad of strength, intellect, and courage. High above, the council elders, architects of betrayal, watched from the keep, expecting chaos to favor their ambition. Instead, the prophecy they had feared played out with blinding clarity. The bond of mate and alpha, once doubted, now galvanized armies. Roderick, wolf and man united, roared a command that reverberated across the moors, inspiring loyalists to rally in waves. Packs from surrounding clans, hearing the cry, descended upon the battlefield like lightning incarnate, tipping the scale irreversibly. The elders' power crumbled under exposure. Messages intercepted and disseminated by Genevieve revealed secret pacts, poisoned envoys, and betrayals meant to fracture Dunraven's unity. Shock and fear spread through the remaining traitors as loyalists closed in, their howls harmonizing with the storm above. Roderick's claws raked earth and steel alike, each movement precise yet raw, embodying both the rage of betrayal and the love that fueled him. The climactic confrontation came at the keep's gates. Roderick confronted the chief of the treacherous elders, a man whose shadowed motives had endangered generations. With Genevieve at his side, wolf and human in perfect synchrony, Roderick overpowered him, binding him with silver-threaded ropes infused with lunar magic. The elder's eyes, wide with disbelief, reflected the ultimate truth. Love, trust, and unity were stronger than fear, manipulation, or centuries of rigid tradition. Victory surged like tidal waves. The enemy, leaderless and fractured, fled or surrendered. Loyalists carried the wounded and celebrated their fallen with solemn pride. Genevieve descended from the ridge, her eyes locking with Roderick's across the battlefield. Amid scorched earth and smoldering tents, they ran to each other, embrace fierce and unyielding. Lips met in a kiss that transcended relief, passion, and exhaustion. An emblem of survival, trust, and love triumphing over treachery. In the aftermath, Dunraven rose from its trials stronger than ever. The battlefield, though scarred, became a testament to unity forged in fire. Clans pledged loyalty not out of fear, but respect for the Alpha who had embraced love and strength simultaneously. Thibaut, once rival and threat, now proved an invaluable ally, his honor redeemed through sacrifice and courage. As dawn broke over the highland peaks, The blood moon fading into pale gold, Roderick and Genevieve stood atop the keep, surveying the lands they had saved. The wind carried the scent of rain-soaked pine, smoke, and the faint tang of iron. A reminder of battle, yes, but also of hope. "We faced darkness, together," Genevieve whispered, her hand in his, the bond glowing faintly with lunar magic, still pulsing with renewed energy. Roderick's gaze softened, amber eyes no longer blazing with rage, but with pride, love, and a promise. "And we will face all that comes, together," he said, the words resonating like an oath carried on highland winds. Their union, once tested by betrayal, jealousy, and war, now stood unbreakable, a beacon to all who would follow them. The climax had been won. Not just the battle, but the hearts, the loyalty, and the future of Dunraven itself. Peace settled over Dunraven like a soft highland mist, carrying the scent of wild heather, pine, and fresh rain. Where once the moors had been soaked with blood and chaos, new life burgeoned, a living testament to resilience and hard-won victory. Roderick and Genevieve walked side by side along the castle's restored battlements, their hands intertwined, the bond between them now tempered in fire and tempered in trust. The crimson of the blood moon was replaced by gold-tinted dawn, sunlight glinting against the castle's stone walls and the banners of the MacLeod clan fluttering with renewed pride. The grand ceremony that followed honored both Scottish tradition and Genevieve's French heritage. Tartans and velvet gowns intertwined, bagpipes and harps blending in harmonious celebration. Friends, allies, and loyal clans gathered, witnessing not just a union of two hearts, but of kingdoms, cultures, and ideals. Thibaut, once rival, now steadfast ally, stood proudly at their side, cementing alliances born of shared trials and mutual respect. Even the remnants of the council elders, humbled by defeat and exile, acknowledged the wisdom of letting love guide rulership. Their whispered regrets faded into legend. Subplots resolved gracefully. The surviving traitors faced justice, their machinations exposed to the realm, while neighboring clans, impressed by Dunraven's unity and resilience, pledged lasting loyalty. Trade flourished along the moors and rivers, and the castle's archives, once hoarded by fear and secrecy, became centers of learning and cultural exchange. Genevieve's strategic mind guided the introduction of new artisans, scholars, and healers, while Roderick's leadership balanced justice and mercy, a ruler forged as much by love as by bloodline. Domestic life unfolded like a storybook yet touched with realism. Their children, born under bright, hopeful skies, embodied the merging of strength and grace. The eldest, a son with amber eyes and golden curls, displayed the determination of his father and the keen insight of his mother. A daughter followed soon after, spirited and fearless, destined to carry forward the lessons of courage and compassion. Dunraven's gardens, once battlegrounds for power, bloomed with rare orchids, lavender, and roses nurtured by Genevieve's hands, their fragrance mingling with the laughter of children, echoing through restored halls. Quiet moments held the deepest fulfillment. Dawn walks along the loch revealed shared smiles, whispered dreams, and a steady assurance of mutual devotion. Evenings found them in the greenhouse, their hands brushing over clay and tools, shaping not just art, but memories. The castle no longer felt like a fortress of solitude, but a home of laughter, passion, and partnership. Each stone, tapestry, and carved railing bore witness to their journey. From jealousy, betrayal, and war, to trust, love, and unity. The people of Dunraven honored their saga through festivals and celebrations, weaving the couple's story into songs, dances, and tales told to children. These events became annual reminders that love, courage, and loyalty could triumph over deception and fear. Roderick's wolf, once a shadow of rage and isolation, now slumbered peacefully in the moonlit gardens, a symbol of strength aligned with serenity. As the sun set over the heather-clad moors, Roderick and Genevieve stood on the highest tower, the wind carrying petals and the distant sound of celebration. "We faced shadows together," Genevieve whispered, her hand resting over his heart, "and emerged stronger." Roderick's amber gaze softened, reflecting both the battles won and the life ahead. "And we will face all tomorrows, side by side," he replied, his voice steady, a promise echoing across the valleys. Their legacy endured. Dunraven became a beacon of hope for neighboring clans, a home where love and wisdom guided decisions, and a story whispered across generations. A tale of mates who conquered not just enemies, but the limitations imposed by fear, tradition, and doubt. The final scene lingered on the loch, mist lifting, reflecting the golden light of dawn. Children played amid blossoming gardens, laughter ringing like the clarion call of a future shaped by courage and unity. Roderick and Genevieve's hands met once more, their bond unbroken, their love unshakable, their saga a living testament to hearts unchained, kingdoms healed, and worlds transformed.